The next speaker will be Pablo Villarreal. Pablo has held several positions during his career in the public service. He currently serves as the head of the National Digital Platform at the Executive Secretariat of the National Anticorruption System. In the Ministry of Public Administration, he was part of the team that negotiated the anti-corruption chapter of the USMCA, prior NAFTA. At the National Digital Agenda Strategy of the Office of the President, he was in charge of the Open Government Agenda. He also worked in the Ministry of Economy and at ProMéxico, where he worked to implement the Fondo ProAVE to support creative industries. He's a Fulbright Scholar and has a Master's in Public Administration from New York University and a BA in International Relations from Universidad Iberoamericana. He will be sharing with us the use case around data intelligence to fight corruption.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias Alejandro y Cristina por la invitación. Hola a todos. I'm going to switch to English now. So the panel is called AI for the Social Good. So I'm going to speak about a thing that if it's tackled correctly, it will definitely benefit us towards a social good, which is corruption. Let me first give you a little bit of context. Corruption, as you all know, is one of the world's leading problems. It costs $3.6 trillion a year. So imagine what we could do with all that money if it was allocated correctly and it's aimed towards the correct things. Mexico, for sure, is no exception. There are many Mexicans here that know that one of the biggest challenges and concerns of Mexico is corruption. So according to Transparency International's Corruption Index, we are ranked 135th out of 180 countries. That means we are not doing well. So what are we doing differently, or what should we do differently to address and tackle corruption? Someone who some believe was Albert Einstein once said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And guess what? What has Mexico been doing in order to fight corruption? As we see in the Transparency International Index, from 2015 till 2018, we haven't done so much. Actually, the perception rank says we are becoming more corrupt. The perception is that we are more corrupt. So we are kind of insane on the way we are trying to tackle corruption in Mexico. So we definitely have to do things differently in order to achieve different results. What is the problem with this on the perception and from the people? Citizens demand a different result. So us, authorities, governments, and civil society have to work differently. We have to do things differently in order to achieve a different result. Because there are a lot of expectations on how we are tackling corruption, and results haven't showed or matched the expectations from the citizens. Luckily today, there is an alternative, and it's based on open data. It's called the National Digital Platform. This is the project I'm currently leading, and it is a platform that is based on something very essential that has been talked about on the several panels today, which is open data and the importance of open data. So what are we doing and how are we doing it? How does the National Digital Platform work? To make it simple, we're taking scattered data that is already being generated by several public offices, but that is currently in information silos and in different formats, and we're ordering this data through data standards. Once we have this ordered data, we're making institutions order the data. So the institutions will continue to have their data, but now following a specific standard that we have the authority to say and to promote. However, the National Digital Platform will never own the data. It will always be owned by the institutions that currently generate it. And the National Digital Platform will make this data interoperable through APIs. Therefore, we will generate intelligence to fight corruption this way. The technology we're using is not new. We're not inventing anything. All of you have used these types of platforms that, based on APIs, consult different types of information. This is Expedia, one of the several platforms that work like this, and I'm sure many of you have used it. If you type a destiny where you want to go, you tell it the date when you want to go, the budget you have, the area where you want to go, and with a simple click, it generates a lot of options of places or hotels where you could stay that range from a very small Airbnb apartment to a huge Hilton hotel. And what does this have in common with the National Digital Platform? Expedia does not generate or own the data. It consults the data through APIs and gives the user the best possible option of what he's looking for. And this is what we're trying to do with the National Digital Platform, but for something very important, which is corruption. Someone brought up a question recently which said that technology is not the solution, AI is not the solution if we don't have humans behind it using it correctly. And I think that is something very important that we have to take in mind. So the National Digital Platform is a tool, but it is also a public policy. And this is how I'm viewing it and how we're developing it. It is a public policy, an interoperability platform that connects people, institutions, regulations, and data and the necessary technology to interconnect and generate anti-corruption intelligence. But this is very important because if we use it and build it as another platform, we have seen many platforms that have failed and that are there and that and a lot of money was invested in them, but are not used properly, are not sustainable, and do not present the results we need. So this one that aims to tackle a very big issue, which is corruption, has to be built correctly and has to be seen as a holistic policy, as a policy that brings in all these several factors. The National Digital Platform's first phase will have 6 systems, which are these 6 systems. It will have information from assets, income, and fiscal declarations of all the public officials in Mexico in the first system. The second one will have information on public officials that participate in procurement processes. The third system will have information on sanctioned public officials and companies. The fourth one will be a system that connects the fiscal transparency system and public audits with the national anti-corruption system. The fifth one will be a single window where any citizen can report an act of corruption. And the sixth one will be a system that has open data on the whole procurement processes from of the whole contracting processes from procurement to execution of any project that has federal money. So as you see, each of these systems by itself has a lot of value and has very valuable information. But the real value of the National Digital Platform is if we standardize this data, then we will be able to mix the data and through the mix of this data generate information to tackle corruption more efficiently. What will authorities be able to do with the National Digital Platform? Here I'll give you 2 very simple examples. If a public official that participates in a contracting process, which is the data from the System 2 of the National Digital Platform, and that when participating in the contracting processes that following year shows that his assets have an unusual augmentation, or then the system, which is the first system of the National Digital Platform. So if we see an unusual behavior on the assets of this citizen due to his participation in a contracting process, the system or the platform will generate a red flag. This red flag means the authorities have to take a look of what's going on there and why this public official suddenly has an increase in his assets, and there's a direct relationship with him participating in a contracting process. Then they will go and look of what's going on in there and see if it's a possible case of corruption. Another example of what the authorities will be able to do is a public official from the state of Oaxaca who is sanctioned by an act of corruption currently can go to the state of Chiapas and ask for a job, and he will be hired because no one in the state of Chiapas knows that this public official was sanctioned by an act of corruption in the state of Oaxaca. Something as basic as that is not possible to know today. So with the platform, we will be able to know if this public official that was sanctioned for an act of corruption in Oaxaca goes to Chiapas. If he was sanctioned for corruption, then he will not be able to be hired in Chiapas. And this way we will prevent a possible act of corruption through the use of the data, of the standardized data from everyone, all the public officials sanctioned, which is system number 3 of the platform. So first I'm going to tell you where we're now. I've told you a lot about the National Geo Platform, but where are we now and what are we currently doing? Currently we're going to launch the beta phase of the National Geo Platform on September the 5th. This beta phase will have only the information from systems 2 and 3 at the federal level. This means we've already tested that the standards that we promoted and that the connection or the APIs and the model we're using to connect to the platform works. So these 2 systems will have information from all the public officials that participate in contracting processes and all the sanctioned public officials and companies from the federal level and from the state of Mexico. This way we're proving our model works and we're going on the right path. But what do we have to do next? What are the next challenges and where do we have to go? How do we exploit the potential of AI in Mexico through the platform to fight corruption? First and foremost, what I have mentioned several times, we have to promote good quality of data. This is basic. That is why we're standardizing the data from these 6 systems, and we have the authority, the legal authority, to say which are the standards that all authorities from the national and the local level have to implement. So how do they standardize the information from the 6 systems? We say how. And this helps because we will order all of this information. So the quality of data is fundamental in order to have a platform that works. Then once we have the data, we will have to develop and train algorithms that use the appropriate inputs of the data of the 6 systems. And through machine learning, we can train them in order to predict the corruption risks I mentioned, identify suspicious behaviors from corrupt officials, and identify corruption in contracting processes. This has already been done through several civil society organizations that use open data. There's an organization called OPI, which worked with IMCO, which is a think tank in Mexico, and they created a risk index for buying units of several government entities. And this index shows which buying units, depending on several variables, are the ones that have more risk of having corruption in their contracting processes. So a lot of these things have been already done, and we proved that this is effective. And finally, let me just to give you a very good data. This can be done. China has done it. They have a platform called Zero Trust. And Zero Trust has been implemented in several provinces in China. China has 50 million bureaucrats. Mexico has approximately 2 million. So with 50 million bureaucrats, China implemented this platform called Zero Trust. And it was so efficient that now the provinces that are using it are starting to shut it down because they have been finding a lot of corrupt officials in the public sector. This means this can be done. We're doing it on the right path, but it takes a lot of effort to do it. Thank you.